Hi, this is Dr. Scott Young, and today we're so excited. We have Derek Johnson here with us, and we're going to talk a lot about executive orders. We're going to talk a little bit about NESARA, but we're going to also talk, and we're going to kind of firm some things up for you here. So thanks for coming on with us, Derek. How you doing today?
Well, thank you for having me. I'm doing pretty good. Probably more good than Furdays. Uh,
So we were talking a little bit about this. I was kind of looking at this, guys, and actually we're going to start off here with prayer because I just want to, there's so much prayer. So, guys, I just want you to calm down as you're listening to this, and I just pray a spirit of just peace. And we just pray peace right now. The peace of God that passes all understanding will guard your heart and mind. And I've told people this before, but just lift your feet up and realize the God of peace will soon crush Satan under your feet, and just see your feet going down and crushing Satan under your feet. And I just thank you for that. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. I just thank you guys, but here's the thing I want you to see is guys, you're you're getting frustrated at times. You're getting frustrated at me, and sometimes you get frustrated at Derek because we're sharing some of this stuff and you don't get it. And and then you get frustrated at him. And I, guys, be calm. We're trying to share it with you. We've done a lot of evidence understanding, but you gotta let us, put it together. But there's some things we got to help you do, is to put the pieces together. But you've got to keep digging and digging to do that. So, Derek, you want to share with us? You have some introduction kind of things you want to do about that?
well, I tell people all the time that, our biggest downfall in America in a good kind of way, but also in a bad kind of way to kind of support each other, whichever way you want to look at it. But we have a free market society. We have a free market, and a lot of people, as I read through all the emails I receive and messages I receive, a lot of people have been listening to the wrong people for so long, and you've been believing that. Now, what we're doing is trying to go, hey, look, I mean, don't put your faith in me. Don't put your faith in Derek Johnson. Put your faith in God first. I'm God anointed and God appointed, but I put my faith in Him. It's not about me. And I think that's where a lot of people have done, is put their faith in people out there.
Right.
And there's a lot of talking heads that they just surface talk, or they say just enough the right stuff to get you pulled in because you are vulnerable and you do seek truth and answers. Uh, but if they're not providing what I do, like where I do .gov and .military, none of it was opinion. None of it's from the standpoint of I didn't hack those sites and write those laws and orders. So if there's nothing there that you can go to that supports how our government actually works, then I don't know. I tell people you got to use discernment. And like we were talking pre-show, that's where your prayers have to amp up even more, because discernment doesn't come easy, and you have to I say you have to kick your prayers in 4-wheel drive. Like, you have to pray harder to go, hey, you know I want the truth, I want the answers, but how does that come? I don't think a lot of people realize it. Like, I'm a Christian too, and in the Bible, God said, He didn't say it was going to be easy. He didn't say the
Wow.
cross was going to be light. He didn't say any of that. He just says, hey, I promise to deliver you through this. If you will seek me first, I will deliver you. I will shield your enemies. He never said it was going to be easy. Do you think that Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego wanted to get in the fire? No, they didn't want to get in it, but they knew
Right.
Christ would be there with them. Right. So, and Daniel in the lion's den, you think he wanted to get in there with a lion? No, but he knew God would help him. He didn't know God was going to tame that lion for him, but he had to have the faith to jump in there. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego had to have the faith to get in there that God would deliver them. So,
Right.
and that's what we're in right now. Uh, I didn't know what was going to be asked of me by God. I opened my mouth in November 2021, and I became a Christian. And I said, God, wherever you lead me, I'll go. Did I think it was going to be this? Absolutely not. Did I think it was going to be easy? Absolutely not. Uh, but I don't put my faith in me. I don't put my faith in anybody but Him. and I know he'll lead me through this.
Well, that's why we love being around you, because I mean, I really love the fire of God on you, and I saw that initially on that too. But I love what you have, this tinge. You actually brought out some interesting things that a lot of us have seen, but we couldn't put all the colors on it. So, for instance, when Trump was standing and doing his inaugural speech, you were kind of showing the JAG information on the military officers around him, and you're going, oh wait, there's a JAG officer there, and that has a meaning. There's a military intelligence officer right beside him. Like, oh, there we go, right? And
Yeah.
that has a meaning to it. Versus Biden actually had no one around him, actors.
Well, and I mean, the other thing is like history always has to play out in order to look back on it and see what you watched. No different than when, I use the story all the time of the Alamo. William Barrett Travis, he drew the line in the sand. He said, men, if you stand on this side of the line with me, you're going to die right here. We're surrounded. We're not getting out of here. If we don't get back up ammo, we're going to die right here. But if you leave here, you'll be labeled as a traitor. You stay here, you're going to die a hero. Right? They didn't believe in throwing the white flag, but he wrote a letter called "Victory or Death." That's forever ingrained in history. Texans love the Alamo more than they love San Jacinto and all the other battles because of what happened there. But no one saw that until afterwards. No one appreciated it until afterwards. And a lot of people don't. Where we're trying to build that line right now is showing that where the line was drawn in the sand. It was drawn in the sand in 2016 during the campaign trail. There was a lot of optics that were laid down there. Now, there was some stuff right before it, sure, that painted a picture of what was about to come that forms what I call the blueprint. But the line was actually drawn in the sand in 2016. Now, laws and orders before 2016, most of them read pretty good if you just read them on the surface. But it was what they were doing behind the scenes with these laws and orders that they were saying to the people here. It reads perfect and they spewed it perfect. But multiple times in my lifetime, even I've heard all kinds of politicians butcher and twist, but butcher and misinterpret what our founders actually meant. But they'll
Right.
say it. But if people don't go actually see what was happening, it's kind of like people who take the Bible. They'll take one scripture out of the Bible, but they don't look at all the other scriptures around it. They don't look at the setting. They don't look at the scene, and they don't paint that scene. They just take that one little scripture because it fits what makes them feel good. The Bible ain't based on feelings or emotions. The Bible is a living, breathing, walking every single day. It meant the same thing 300 years ago as it will mean in 500 years.
Right.
It don't change or shift based off emotions. So it's the same kind of principle. I tell people all the time, if you live life by principles, a lot more things will make sense because you'll learn to keep it simple. And I know I don't like using that term, keep it simple, stupid, because a lot of people think it means talking to someone, calling them that. It didn't. The guy who created that term, it should have probably said keep it stupid, simple. But if they want to use the acronym KISS, if they still had to just say KISS, but still, a lot of people, if they would just see that, just keep it simple, and then the line was drawn right here. Here's the blueprint, and you wouldn't have been able to look at 2021 obviously without 2019. But all these laws and orders didn't come together until certain optics and comms were laid down. And then what makes it complete? Well, here's the complete blueprint. We have that now. It's just a matter of people's going, it makes sense. But as you know, I tell the John Wayne quote all the time. I always blame others. I put the blame on others. When I couldn't do something in high school, my dad used to say, "Just blame it on me." And I'm like, "Thank you." But John Wayne says, "I'm only responsible for what I say, not for what you understand."
Right.
But we
Right.
try to make people. It's like what you and I are doing are trying to make people understand that, look, I mean, this benefits all of us. It doesn't just benefit one or two of us by people knowing by laws and orders what's going on.
So let's go back over, let's go to one of those. So in 2017, late 2017, we have Executive Order 13818, which is very, very clear to you. And what does that mean to patriots? I mean, I've talked a lot about it as a basis of NESARA and some of the issues of the bankruptcy point that happens with that. Would you agree with that, or how would you feel about that particular one?
Well, 818 is the human rights executive order. And so a lot of people don't realize what's been going on in the world. And that's very, very, very unfortunate from the standpoint of, when I was in college, a girl that was from Alabama, and she was going to the University of Alabama, was abducted in Aruba, right? Well, only people who obviously the initial shockwave of that affected the state. But after a couple weeks and a couple months and a couple years, it only dwindled down back to her family, right? And it only meant something to her family. It wasn't that the massive shockwave anymore, right? And so that doesn't change the fact that she was still abducted and that she was killed, right? She never made it home. So it's kind of that effect. It's showing people that, look, you watch all these TV shows about mafias and drug lords and drug this and cartels and, and sex trafficking and human trafficking and child trafficking. At what point do you not understand that that is based off real life? And at what point do people not realize that we the people, people hear that we the people too much, and they don't realize that government doesn't run government, systems don't run systems,
Right.
you know, cartels don't run cartels, people do. All right, and that goes back to the Bible, the eye for the eye, tooth for a tooth. It goes back to what Donald Trump talks about in different kind of ways, where he talks about accountability and responsibility, honesty, integrity. We got to reinstill that. That's what we're doing. That's what's happening. But that one order outlines like a big umbrella of all of this corruption, all of these different kinds of trafficking. And it was the war on trafficking that started. So I got a call for a quick. Sorry. I didn't realize that.
It's okay.
I had bad allergies. So
do I. Right
I
now, I've
thought
been kicking it.
I thought it was gonna be fine, but then it hit me. I feel it. But as far as like, that's why I was so anxious and excited to get on with you, because I normally have to, with different people like Charlie Ward and others who are more skilled in NESARA. I understand the overall principle of it. I understand the general theory around it too and different things, but as far as like the in depths of it, it's like I want the experts on that. But I do understand this whole operation, when it roots out and it cleans out everything that's possible. We can never eliminate evil completely.
Yeah.
But
That's in the heart of
if we
man.
can,
That's always
right,
the point that you got to realize.
and if people can understand that Donald Trump wasn't making a mockery of God and Christ when he held that Bible up, sit in front of that church. If he was, I firmly believe God would strike him dead, just like that, or something would have happened to him. Because that would be the ultimate mockery. When you're at the ultimate top level of the world for the world to see. I just, based off my belief, I just think that would have been the most ultimate blasphemy mockery out there. I don't think God would allow it. So with the flip of that is saying, hey, he's showing the world what God is doing through him. So you had to go against all evils, because we're in a spiritual warfare first, and then it's an information warfare second, but it parallels each other. But the spiritual is first, because that's the forces we're dealing with, and we know there's evil there. We know there's evil. It happens in our own neighborhoods. It happens in our own communities. It happens in people. Once again, it's that shockwave. It means something here, and longer time goes, it dwindles away, because if it doesn't immediately affect you, but it does immediately affect your neighbors and your friends. You always say, "Oh, I don't." People think it'll never happen to them. I know someone immediately. One of my dad's friends, his granddaughter was abducted not terribly long ago. Now they caught this guy in time. He was an illegal alien. All right. So they called him in time based off of the things that the state had put into place for this. They prepared for this. All right. So that's what we're trying to show people. And that one order alone was the very first. It declared a national emergency. It was the first national emergency that Donald Trump declared, December 2017, and it was to go. It was setting the tone of what we're embarking on, what war we're going to embark on. It's a different kind of war. Donald Trump said that in March 2020. He said we're in a different kind of war, same scenario as World War II. Different war meant an invisible regime. Well, this invisible regime had all kinds of stuff going on all over the planet between drug trafficking, human trafficking, sex trafficking, and child trafficking. And so many people don't want to hear that. They want to push it under the rug. I just want to hear,
It's too
war.
uncomfortable.
It's too uncomfortable. And at some point, who is the elephant in the room? At some point, who draws the line in the sand? You know,
Right.
and once again, people do this. It's not systems, government, or cartel. It's not the organization chart. It's the people, right? And so that's what that order is doing. It should make all patriots rise up, but we need to rise up the right way. Like we need to know, how do we team together? How can we meet the military in the middle? How can we meet Donald Trump and what the military generals are doing in the middle? But that one order alone, I mean, he's got 10 that were national emergencies, but that one order is saying, hey, look, we're identifying these problems. And here's how you do this. Like, you obviously make people more aware in their communities and their neighborhoods. Always, keep watch on this, keep watch for this. Now I believe that in the near future, when all this is flipped, I believe that we'll have, possibly probably seminars or briefings and things of that nature. Because once again, you can't eliminate evil completely because that's in the heart of man. But what they're going to do, based on my knowledge, based off that order, and based off the federal continuity directives, which outline emergency communications, and when Donald Trump said we're gonna have these places where homeless are going to be, we're going to get the homeless off the streets, and we're going to have these camps. There's another thing, a message I received just today about FEMA camps. They've been listening to the wrong people.
Right.
When
That's
Donald
not
Trump
for that's
talks,
not for us. That's for there's a lot of great reasons for those things to utilize.
They are going to have we're going to have the largest great awakening and revival in this nation. And that's what it's going to be. Because all these laws and orders point and funnel to what he's talking about. Because what he's doing is proclamating. These aren't rallies. These aren't speeches. They're proclamations. Huge difference. And so if people would understand that look, and you may be just a filler in your family, your friends, your neighborhood, your community. It may not be your city or your state or the government, but wherever you are, these things they were put in place to make you go, holy crap, this is a great awakening. This is biblical. This is monumental. This is historical. So I tell people, if you trust the man, trust the plan. And that's what God and Donald Trump, because Trump is working through God.
Right. So would you agree or disagree? And that's fine. I mean, I'm fine with that as well. Would we say that we're bankrupting the cabal in this way? And that's the way to kind of stop them? Would that be right in that particular order there?
Well, yeah, because when you take their money away, what can they do with it, right?
Right.
Well, we know our dollar's not worth anything, and that's been that way since the '68 gold standard act. Whenever we left the gold standard, they made the dollar as valuable as they wanted it, or as invaluable as they wanted it. And anybody who knows anything about business, inflation, taxes, et cetera, knows that. So yeah. What I tell people is what's going on is a lot of things, but when the military generals, they went to Trump, they wanted Trump to run because he's an outsider, not a career politician.
Right.
He's a billionaire, so the man's done everything on this side. And I tell people, quit worrying about his personality. Right. Quit worrying about this stuff. We all have different quirks about us. We all have different things that you might like what I'm saying, but you might not be able to hang out with me for more than an hour. Who
Yeah.
knows? Don't worry about that stuff. Like, has nothing to, you're not going home with him every day. You're not in this circle. It's like none of that matters. I tell people all the time, before you look out your window, look in your mirror.
Right.
Like quit worrying about that stuff. But yeah, I mean, what they did with him was put him in place, right? He proved, and you and I have seen this even in my lifetime. I'm a young 40, but we always have a Republican president who gets in. What do? They increase the defense budget and the economy goes down. Well, you get a Democrat in there and it does what? Flip-flops. That's not the checks and balances our founders talked about.
Nope.
Not anywhere near. All that does was keep the career politicians thriving and going and making bank. I mean, once again, you got Joe Biden, who was a senator for 38 years on $170,000 a year salary, and he's worth $347 million. That don't add up, right? That don't make sense.
Right.
So, and then it talks about we know the insider information. They got more information than the regular people did. But if you do what Martha Stewart did, you're guilty.
Right.
You go to prison. But they do it. It's okay.
It's
Right.
all
So there's
good.
that rhinos. There's that rhino. There's a swamp. There's the deep state. And it's on both sides of the aisle. This is not a left and a Democrat thing. Now it typically flows on the side, but it's a lot on both sides. All right. So what they did with him. This is so brilliant when you think about it. It's biblical and it's godly, but it's like it's also business sense makes total sense. Donald Trump forever proved that you can go in the White House and he schooled the federal corporation, right? And he proved that you can have a strong economy and a strong defense budget and not start any wars. Plain and simple.
Yeah.
And we've had, like he said, he's only really repeating what Eisenhower said. Eisenhower had the famous speech in January 17, 1961 about the military industrial complex.
Yep.
Well, Trump followed up saying, no more lobbyists, no more defense contractors. All they do is make excuses to stay in war because of money. And every war since Korea has been started by man for this. Right. It had nothing to do with tyranny. It had nothing to do with them being a threat to us. Just like Obama's executive orders, 4 of them for Ukraine, saying they pose a unusual and extraordinary threat to us. Like, how did they pose an unusual and extraordinary? Those are, when you look at the definitions of those by Webster definition, damn. Like,
what did they do? Yeah, well, every time you kind of look at one of the things I always kind of say is go back in World War II, and I always kind of say this, my kind of foray into looking in the NESARA kind of thing is looking into the Philippines. I'm a historian a little bit too, and you go, why were we over in the Philippines? And also later on, why were we in Vietnam? I mean, like, why were we over in those whatever lands? I mean, what do they have anything to do with America? The answer is there's gold over there. I mean, I grew up in Colorado, and I know you're from Colorado as well. So, and it's like, there's gold in them hills. That's the point. There was a huge amount of gold, and there's cabal or anti-cabal gold in those hills over there, and that's where they were trying to take it out, and they were fighting each other over that issue. That's that is a lot of that white hat, black hat kind of conversations that we get into with that too. So yeah,
I always tell people wars are either for power, resources, or territory. Right. It don't change. Like, what else do we have to fight for in a different way outside? That's the evil side: power, resources, and territory. So, but to say that they're tyrannical, and this, I mean, look at where Ukraine. Most people can't even pick Ukraine on a map. First off, that's my first test for people. Like, all right, show me where Ukraine is on this map. And I put the one up.
They couldn't pick it between Poland and Russia. They couldn't figure it out. They would go, wait, is it in Asia or is it in Europe? Like, well, sort of in between those two. So, yeah. Hey, so
You know,
so
and I'm
so
not trying to pick on people, but you know, well, once again, though, like that's the general principles of being able to have a conversation. It's like, okay, fit Ukraine on the map, and then we can talk. You know,
exactly. Start from there. We'll be
yeah,
fine.
yeah.
So go over to Executive Order 13848. So a couple months, excuse me, a couple months later in 2018, my cough as well is super fun, I'm sure. And where a lot of people get frustrated with me being around the truther movement all the way through the 2020 area, and they're pissed off at me, and they cuss me out, and leave my channel and everything. And you know the feeling. So I just been doing it a little bit longer than you have on that. But the thing that they get frustrated with is they go, well, they didn't fix 2020, and then 2022 we're like, well, Scott, you said that we wouldn't get past 2022, and then we didn't get past 2022. And I'm like, we don't fix 2022, and yet what is 13848, and we're going to come up in 2024, and I'm going, and people go, when is this ever going to get fixed? So can you talk a little about that and fixing, the elections in 2024? Do we even have to worry about 24? And I know that's a long kind of thing. And talk a little bit about that as you kind of see that point there.
Well, you know, as we know, timestamps and dates don't lie. You know, and that's the first thing is identifying where is the line in the sand, right? Where did it start? You know, and what I call the blueprint, right? And it sounds, I know people get tired of hearing blueprint and movie, and you know, it's a script, and but it really is. Um, and I think that the key thing with this is that trying to show people that, look, you and I have watched this for years too. You've seen politics on TV. You see it on the little black box over here. You see it all the time. I don't turn it on, ladies and gentlemen. I don't have to because I have the laws and orders and a blueprint. But I've been there too. I used to watch the news growing up like everybody else did. So no one can one up each other and point at each other and say, you know, I've been awake longer than you, in the sense of that they were never asleep. You know,
No.
we all had to come to a point where we're like, okay, there's got to be something more than this.
Right.
Um, and then when you go read the laws and the orders of your land and how your land actually works, how your government works, you're like, oh. So, you know, now, before 2016, there were laws and orders, sure, but they didn't, you know, the cabal, the evil, didn't abide by them. But where the line was drawn in the sand. That's what makes Executive Order 13848 so brilliant. Like I said, I've said it and I'll say it again. Every show I say, I think it's the most important piece of paper since the Declaration of Independence, because of what it does in a different kind of way. Not because what the Declaration did, but the Declaration of Independence, no one ever wants to look at this. The Declaration of Independence was signed 7 years before the war ended.
Right.
And no one, you know, if you'd have been in that moment in 1776, fighting on the ground, standing in front of these opponents and going, come hell or high water, we are going to back this little document up.
And
All right.
we know we're gonna die. Even
We know we're going to die.
yeah, and Boston, the Boston Tea Party just has happened in 1776. They are about ready to destroy Boston, and Boston's taken over. New York is about ready to be taken over at this time frame, and they're signing a document to hang themselves. And we don't even win the war for, like you said, 7 more years, guys.
7 years. And if you apply 7 years, well, what's cool about this, even though this don't parallel, but we've been in this war for 7 years.
Mm-hmm.
We've been in this war for 7 years. Donald Trump tells you all the time, we've been in this war for 7 years. He's telling you right there. It started before his presidency, 2016. There were some key things that outline that. So I always paraphrase and I try to parallel the 13848. So you have to see what happened right before it. That was iconic. All right. So the Law of War Manual was reissued on June 12th, 2015. Donald Trump rolled down the famous escalator 4 days later. All right.
I
The
hadn't
Law of
thought
War
about that.
Manual The Law War Manual was where military and federal lawyers got together. They took the strengths of the Law War Manual Germany, Canada, Australia, and United Kingdom, plus they took the strengths of the Hague Conventions, Geneva Conventions, Nuremberg Trials, and Lieber Code of 1863. And it tells you all that right at the preface of the Law War Manual, which is the new Department of Defense's Law War Manual, which parallels and strengthens, I call it, covers the umbrella of the Uniform Code of Military Justice, which is military law.
But is
And
that
people
is
have
that
to
what Chris Miller was? Is that what Chris Miller was talking about November 5th, 2020, when he was talking about the continuity of government, the devolution kind of stuff. He was talking about the law of war, right?
That's correct. Because
Wow,
but
makes sense.
and it's hidden in plain sight, even though they told you in plain sight.
Right.
Right. And once again, there's an order that shows that he's the actual acting Secretary of Defense, not Lloyd Austin. And that's what I'm painting a picture of. So when you do the Law of War Manual, Trump rolls down the escalator 4 days later. The Military Justice Act was written in 2016. The Military Justice Act is also the most important piece of paper since the Declaration from the military side of things. A lot of people don't realize our military was founded first. Our military was founded before the Declaration of Independence, before the Articles of Confederation, before the Constitution, and before the Bill of Rights. The military and the war articles, which became military law, came long before the Declaration, the AOC, the Constitution, and Bill of Rights. So our founders are showing people that military law supersedes. It comes before federal, civil, anything, period. Right? We've never had anything that clarified that. Now
it's over top, but see, it is. I mean, and I had this conversation with one of my employees today. I mean, and they were talking about this. And I'm like, I'm a business owner, okay, I'm top of everything of my business. But if I violate, the laws of the land, obviously a court can come in and wipe me out, obviously. And she goes, so what happens if the government goes and violates? It was a great question. And I said, guess what? She goes, well, then SCOTUS does that. I said, no, it's the military. But guess what? Every single person who gets in office is swearing an oath to the Constitution, which is the same thing that every single military person does.
Right. Title 10. I tell people you can't have one without the other. But so Roosevelt told Congress, he didn't ask Congress, he told Congress, it's my duty under Article 2 of the Constitution to be commander in chief of the Army and the Navy, because that's all they had at that point. And then the Marines were obviously, they were created back then, but it was the Army and the Navy that was put in the Constitution. So when you look at that and you go, I tell people all the time, we didn't have a single piece of paper that did what the Military Justice Act did in 2016. This is also the United States Supreme Court clarifying that military laws, courts, and personnel are separate from civil laws, courts, and personnel.
Right.
Military. Now, it wasn't passed until the 2017 National Defense Authorization Act.
Correct.
But it didn't go into effect, if you look at the actual paper of it, August 28th, 2020, or it's August 2020. So right before that was where Donald Trump became a wartime president in March 2020. Right then.
Right.
So
which is the same time frame.
We'll get there.
Which is the same time frame where I talk about when he took the Fed and shoved it underneath the Treasury, which is the start of NESARA, which is my point of the start.
So I want to lay that, and then I want you to do that, because we're building that topic to get to 13848. So
breaking my head.
13848 though was September 12th, 2018. So before we get to that, September 12th, 2018, Donald Trump signs an executive order, automatic law, ladies and gentlemen, 2 months before any election under his visual presidency. All right. How did he know to write an executive order, which is automatic law, 2 months before any election under his presidency that talks about election interference with a key line in that whole order that I point out. It's all important, but there's one very key line that is full of codes and just, it's like if you got the dice in Vegas and you throw it down there and you risk your whole life on it and it hits, here it is. It says, although no foreign power has altered the outcome or vote tabulation in any United States election. No foreign power. It didn't say domestic. And
Right.
it also says has altered it. It says altered the outcome, which means everything. That means my vote, your wife's vote, all my friends. Altered the outcome, meaning the whole thing. Or vote tabulation. The or vote tabulation cancels out January the 6th because January 6th, they had 2 objections in the Arizona count.
Right.
Or vote tabulation are objections found in 3 United States Code, Chapter 15. So it told you what was coming. It's a plan. But what proves the plan are the federal continuity directives 1 and 2, and also the directive that was put out February 2018, which was before September 2018.
Right.
Which shows all 3 branches of government are under a continuity of government. So that means Congress, the courts, and executive branch of the president and the vice president. And when Trump said in March 2020, we're in a different war, same scenario as World War II, he said that specifically. All right. After Fox, CNN, MSNBC, NBC, all of them asked him, are you a wartime president? Yeah, I believe I am. Well, he told you in 2016, he said, never again will we voice to the public what's going on with our military, because if you find out, guess who else finds out?
Right.
But he also said to Jeb Bush, he told Jeb Bush, who's going to back me? Who's going to support me? I have over 200 generals backing me right now and more to come. Well, that was way back here in 2016. So fast forward to March 2020, different war, same scenario as World War II. They said, specify different war. He said, well, it's an invisible regime. You don't know who they are, but we do. Who is we? Or those headbands, military intelligence, judge advocate generals. That's where how this all ties in. Well, then March 2020, the same scenario means the same laws and orders, because once again, Roosevelt, this is why Trump says also, if they're going to investigate me, they're going to investigate every president before me immediately. Because 95% of the laws and orders he's using are before him, right? They've all been written. So this is why it's so important. Different wars, same scenario as World War II. There's 2 parallels. Biden is what they call a Commonwealth Act number 671. Now, it took me forever to find that on our .gov site, but it's on gazette.gov. I've got it in my documents. But Biden is a Commonwealth Act 671. Talking about the Philippines. Here's your Philippines. In World War II, Roosevelt, there's 2 things Roosevelt did that was very powerful. Roosevelt put a puppet in place. He put a puppet in place to meet the press and the media for the Philippines, while the actual president is what they call an exile. And Roosevelt in the U.S. flew him back and forth. He had full control of his military and full control of the protection of his people and his country. Puppet just answered questions for the press and the media. That was it. No power, nothing. Is in history books. The other thing that Roosevelt did, Congress, after he told Congress, it is my duty, as commander-in-chief, it is my duty to uphold the Constitution as commander-in-chief of the Army and the Navy. He told Congress, and he basically told them in another speech that if you don't act, I will. And who do you think the military is going to listen to? You think they're going to listen to a bunch of politicians, or are they going to listen to the commander-in-chief? Which one do you think? Right. So he guilted them in a different way. Congress gave Roosevelt the power to restructure the executive branch where a president can declare war by national emergencies.
Yep.
And that became the National Emergencies Act that Jimmy Carter put into place in 1979.
Right.
Even though the first War Powers Act and the second War Powers Act are 50 United States Code. That's found in 50 U.S. Code. Well, that's what Donald Trump did in March 2020. He used 50 U.S. Code, Chapter 33, Section 1541. He had declared 10 national emergencies up to that point. Well, because we're under a continuity of government, if you know what a continuity of government is, this is why to blow your mind. I'm about to blow some heads here. And then what you're going to pull in with the NESARA is going to blow them even more. In March 2020, Donald Trump had declared already up from December 2017 with the 13818 to March 2020 with the 13912. He had declared 10 national emergencies. And if you go read these federal continuity directives, it shows you that Congress is under a continuity of government. All right. So with a national emergency, Congress has to have a joint resolution in order to solve it or terminate it. Or the only person who can terminate it is the president. That's also 50 U.S. Code, Chapter 34. Right. So adding to that really quick, Donald Trump federalized 1 million National Guard in active duty in Executive Order 13912, March 27th, 2020. That is a direct military command. That is not a federal order. He made it a federal order, but it's also a direct military command. That gives him full control as commander in chief. Then he took it one step further in April. Executive Order 13919. He gave the Secretary of Defense equal power to federalize the National Guard active duty. That's Christopher Miller. That's where Christopher Miller comes into place. Then your Military Justice Act, August 2020. See how they all tie in.
Right.
So when you go back, though, and you read these federal continuity directives, what's so brilliant about it is Congress wasn't going to have a joint resolution because they're under a continuity of government. They're already under control by the military. See, that's what people have to understand. Right. They were already under control because someone had to draw that line in the sand and say, okay, all right, we got to rid out Congress. About, what numbers I've been hearing, about 98% of Congress going to be wiped out or cleaned out. And we've been seeing that through Donald Trump's wins, 232 wins and 18 losses just back in November. Those 18 losses were what? The battleground states. All right. So when you go look at March 2020 alone, it shows through those national emergencies and then also the continuity of government. Here's what blows people's mind. What is a continuity of government? If you go read by definition, definition says it is the president's intent to keep the constitutional government in place, intact, before, during, after catastrophic emergency. Well, if these federal continuity directives were issued January 17, 2017 and June 13, 2017, and the other stems were February 2018, January 2021, and July 2021, but the main two ones were 2017, 3 days before Trump took office, and 4.5 months after took office. Where was the catastrophic emergency? Was it before January 2017? Was it during January 2017 or after? If it was before, then it points out all the evil before. It works. But if it's after, then that would mean 2020 was all a plan. It means that if you go read those directives, if you go read February 2018 directive, that's all under .gov. It shows you the word pandemic in 2018, and it shows chemical explosions, catastrophes. What is a catastrophe? Train derailments, chemical plants, egg plant. So what they're showing you is what's leading into what Trump's been professing. He's been proclaiming. These aren't speeches. These aren't rallies. He's still current and sitting president. And even Fox News told you that a week ago when the quote unquote indictment, the guy on Fox said, this is making history. They're indicting the former and current president. They're telling you right there, like it's hidden in plain sight. But what they're showing you, Donald Trump, November the 15th, 2022. Everybody thought he was announcing his 2024. He wasn't. It was loaded with comms. And right in the middle of him talking about the economy, he goes, pretty soon, we're going to put our beautiful flag on the surface of Mars. Military auxiliary radio system.
Right.
If you go read these continuity directives, it talks about emergency communications. If you go back and look at Trump's proclamations from 2021 and 2022 on OAN and Newsmax, on the bottom line, it showed how you purchase an emergency radio. Emergency communications, 42 United States Code.
Right.
Emergency communications are all outlined in these directives. They're showing you what he said just a while back. He said another speech, we're going to decimate street crime by 85%. That's martial law. He said Nancy Pelosi has been fired. She's on her way to another country right now. That's Gitmo. All right. He also said we're going to tear down some bad and ugly buildings and build them back up, and you, the
Oh
people, are
yeah.
going to get to name them. That's martial law. The only tearing down bad and ugly buildings. All these aircraft I show, I know we were going to get into that later, but all these aircraft I show, they're flying. The National Guard are out of their states every single day. And to have a veteran out there, I've had veterans, say, oh, well, the National Guard can do that. Where did the order come from? Why would Biden extend Biden has extended all 10 national emergencies, and he's extended the executive order 13912 that federalized the National Guard active duty, and it's a 2-year clause in it. So he extended
he
it
keeps
March.
going. I mean, if you're a Biden fan, this is what we were talking off camera. I'll let you get a breath there too. But if you're a Biden fan, or if you just believe, oh, Trump lost and everything's just like we're going to hell in a handbasket kind of thing, like, listen, guys, and we lost, and we're just hoping to get in 2024 and get the right people in, next election. Guys, why would idiot Biden possibly allow these executive orders to keep going on? And he had to re-sign him up. It's because he's in control by the White Hats.
This is it. He's an actor, right? He's that Commonwealth Act. It's a continuity of government. They had to keep it going. But this is the only way they could clean it out. This is the only way they could expose evil to you, the people, to finally see evil in all aspects. Jill Biden, do you see how she kisses people? At what point do you wake up? At what point? So the cool thing is, once again, though, is that executive order 13912, it's a 2-year clause. So it means it's extended to March 2024. But if you go look at Federal Continuity Directive 2, the operational dates of 1 was 2018 to 2022. The operational dates of number 2, 2020 to 2024. All right. Now, that don't mean that you're going to see another year of this. That's not what I'm telling people. What I'm saying is the dates align with the plan that's been in place. This has been a plan. And those directives, when you go read them, it's nothing to fear. What they're doing is that if you catch it, like you and I caught it early, if you know what's going on, if you will listen to us and go read and go understand, you will have nothing to fear. Now, you're not going to see boots on the ground like you see videos from Iraq, Afghanistan, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Right. It ain't going to be like that. But what they're preparing was they got everybody there. 2020 was such a successful. They used health. They scared the crap out of them by twisting flu and pneumonia numbers. All right, because Donald Trump already had executive orders in place for influenza and vaccines that were healthy, not FDA that went against it. They did that too. They're exposing the FDA as well. They're exposing all these people. So there's a lot of different, it's like a lot of different kind of missions going on. But they still, the overall picture was 2020 got you to sit back, got you to sit in your house. It scared the crap out of you. Why? Because the military can work more efficiently and effectively that way when you're sitting back here instead of the good old boys and their AR-15s getting out in the streets acting like Barney Fife and there's one little bullet. And, you don't know who you're fighting. If you don't know who you're fighting, you don't need to be in the streets because we don't need it being the good old boys versus the liberals. It don't matter how bad and how wacky they are. We don't need that kind of tyranny in our streets.
Right.
Well, what will bring people together is exposing all this crap, and it will come out in the military tribunals. This will be shown. Everything will be shown. People will see what's been going on. And this is how they limited bloodshed in our own streets, because that's not what America's about. If we ever lost our foundation, if we ever lost what makes us great, is our difference of opinions, but having a strong border and having identity, an ID and voter ID, if we ever lose that, no one's saying you can't have different thoughts, but what we're saying is we got to have a come back to the foundation before we can have a come talk about this, that, and other. You got to understand how How can you live on your piece of property and believe differently, but leave your neighbor alone for believing differently than you too,
Right.
versus all this pinning against each other? And they've done that. The rhinos, have pinned us against our very principles of this nation: religion, politics, race, and patriotism. And that's how they've defeated us. Now we're reversing that. This is not a psyop. This is a counter psyop. This is
Right.
what the military is running, is a counter psyop, because the psyop works perfectly. It got everybody to fight against the key principles of the United States of America and what its foundation is. So this is a counter, and we're having to slowly leak this stuff out because it's so much information, and Americans on all sides of the aisle won't be able to handle all this. But if people would just see those it's the cog that actually proves the military operation more than it is the military that proves the cog. But, the odds that I'm just getting on my flight app every single day for 2 years, and the National Guard are out of their state jurisdictions and out of their country every single day. No,
Yeah.
there's a 2 week. Yeah, sure. Every state has 2 weeks of active duty based on this. But where did the orders come from?
Right.
The federalization of the National Guard wouldn't benefit Biden in any way, shape, or form. But go back to that Title 10 that we took. When I, Derek Johnson, raised my right hand to go into the Army, I, Derek Johnson, do solemnly swear to support and defend the Constitution of the United States. It says support and defend. It didn't say defend and support. You can't support something.
Right.
You can't defend it if you can't support it.
Right.
Right. So key words. So if you're gonna defend something and you got to support it, supporting it means you got to know what it reads. Right. You got to know what that Constitution reads. You got to know about the Army or whatever branch you're going into, know about their history, know about when they were founded, because they used to walk around and say, when was the Army established? They just hit you. Butterfly, June 14th, 1775. Correct. And then go on, or whatever it could be. But that's the key thing, is that right there, this is how I get people. I'm like, okay, do you believe in the military? They go, yes. They say, or they'll not counter you, but did you serve? Yeah. Well, thank you for your service. But then if you got into this topic, well, I don't believe in that. And I say, well, then you just don't thank me for my service. Well, I do. I can support the military without supporting Trump. No, you can't. That's not possible because of this. The only person who can federalize the National Guard to active duty is the President of the United States of America.
Right.
That's United States Code 12406. The only person who's federalized the National Guard to active duty is Donald John Trump. Right. It wasn't Biden. Biden extended that order. Whether you think he's real or not, he extended that. Trump. Well, from the military side, from the military law, from the military side of things, and the Military Justice Act, military law comes before any other law. So that's a direct order. That means that Donald Trump, as long as he's breathing, as long as he's walking, breathing, he's got that command. Nobody else has that command. That's a direct military order. All right. So he has that command. And then the 50 U.S. Code shows you. It shows you the only person who can terminate a national emergency if Congress does not have a joint resolution is the person who declared it. All right. So there's two things going on there. So when people say, oh, I say, well, look, if you believe in the military, if you thank me for my service, that oath I took, it's under Title 10. So you can't have one without the other. And when Trump put that in Executive Order 13912, guess what it falls under? 10 U.S. Code, Chapter 1209. So there's the same Title 10. So you can't have one without the other. You can't believe in one without the other. You either have to believe in all of them or none of it, like the Bible tells you. The Bible says that too. The Bible says any man
better believe the whole thing. Right.
Yeah. One of the last 4 verses of the Bible, 2 of them say, if any man that adds to the words of this book will have plagues added to him. Any man that takes away from the words of this book shall have his name taken away from the book of life. So it tells you right there, you either believe in all of it or none of it.
Right.
And the Bible tells you it's better not to know than to know and deny it. So once you see all these laws and orders put in place, you can't unsee it because it's all there. It's all in a chronological blueprint, a chronological order, and then parallels with what you're about to talk about. Because I know it blows people's mind because it scares them in a way of like, I have the questions, and maybe you can answer some of these. I have the questions like, oh, what about my 401k and what about my savings and what about this? I said, look, ladies and gentlemen, if you trust the man, trust the plan, because they wouldn't have taken us through all this if they didn't have that set in stone how that's going to convert over.
Well, I think that's the basic point too. I mean, you brought up, March of 2020, which was my touchstone of a basic time frame when I knew for a fact through the CARES 1 and CARES 2 Act, where we had the switchover event where we pulled away the Fed and shoved it underneath the Treasury Department. Once we did that, we took away all of the funding, and that was Executive Order 13818. When we did that, we took away all their ability to fund themselves. And so, you can do your human trafficking, but guess what? You're going to do it on your own dime, and their own money only could go so far. Now we needed the military to go and clean them out. And that was the difficult part that we had. So that's a fascinating touchstone that you brought from an executive order standpoint. And you brought up another date that was August of 2020. And, one of the things that we've all known about from the NESARA part is the quantum financial system was touching into effect in that basic time frame. That's when most people started noticing, wait, my debt started getting wiped out. And so the quantum financial system has been in place then, but we were only in that testing phase. And so we were waiting for things to happen. And yes.
Speaking of which, I want to add, is that really quick?
Yeah.
That's when Donald Trump stood up in August 2020. It just hit me. He stood up and he said, if you're a 100% disabled veteran, I'm going to take out your student loans. He said, I got my letter. He said it in August. I got my letter in August 2020 that my student loans have been wiped out.
See, I'm telling you, you guys got to be excited about that. Derek Johnson on my little channel here is telling you in August of 2020, his student loans go away. Isn't that cool? Shouldn't you just get excited?
And that was a speech by Donald Trump. He stood up and he said, and it was just like real out of nowhere. He's like, and by the way, if you're a 100% disabled veteran, I'm going to take out your student loans. And there were some other things that he said, but mine was a student loan.
And people, this is one of the things. It's not just to make it, it's not about fairness. Okay. This is where I get a little bit sideways on other people. It's about killing off all of the funding of the cabal. This is about the white hat funding. We're taking away all their funding abilities. Okay. So this is the debt stuff that we're doing. So the debt forgiveness areas. So and it's all flowing in from them. So we're just wiping them out, and we're trying to do this to us. So that's the connectors out there with that too. I do want to kind of jump over because and I want to respect your time frame with that too. You use these gorgeous pictures on your Telegram page, which is really cool. I mean, and I want you to kind of show or at least say your Telegram page a little bit, but you have these flight tracks on there. Now, my wife is she loves to fly in her past, and she loves them, and she looks at them, and I get them as well a little bit. And I have to, I had to study a little bit about them, but when you see the flight tracks, and I think some people look at them and they go, what? And they don't get it with that too. So can you talk about that?
Well, and that's the thing. It's like, all this stuff goes together. All of it coincides. And I've had a lot of requests for me to, do little clips and nuggets. And I'm like, you can't though. Like you just can't, because like I tell people, if you just take my blueprint and then, print it out and then draw a line and stop where you need to stop and then pick up. But you just can't do little nuggets. The same thing with the aircraft. Like you can't just look at one picture and go, oh, well, the National Guard, they could leave their state.
Yeah.
Well, where's the order come from?
Just a basic overview of why we're showing some of that. That's really what I would want people to know. Why?
Oh, yeah. And the thing is, like I want to tell people, it's paralleling what we just talked about. So in 2018, now, would you have known about this? No, if you don't know anything about military.com and military news and things of that, you wouldn't know this. But in 2018, military.com puts out Army is spending $500 million training soldiers for our next wars will be in mega cities, not inside them, but beneath them.
Beneath them.
Then then you come over in 2019, DARPA requested immediate access for tunnels under universities for military. All right. Now I've been in one of those tunnels under the University of Alabama, so I know they're there. And I know about some other tunnels.
Wow.
But I won't talk about the others, but there, there's some that I saw when I was in the military that we got to see for something else. And anyway, but they're there. And now the one in the University of Alabama, it just happened, kind of randomly in a different way. But I got to see it, and it's like, oh wow, where's that bad boy going? It looked like it's as far as you can see. Right. Well, I've already seen all the maps and where they do. So it would have gone to Birmingham and from Tuscaloosa, it goes up to like near Tupelo and goes on up, Tupelo, Mississippi. Well, so when you have those two pieces there, all right. Now I'm not I don't say, military.com, they're an independent, website. And so like, if you don't know these laws and orders, I don't recommend going over because they do still put out stuff where it looks like some of their writers have no clue what's going on. Right. I give the media a tip of the hat because of this right now, because of that line in the sand back here. The media is under a war powers thing. War powers of the president, the code 47 U.S. Code 606. The president can control and shut off TV, internet, radio, broadcast, and also closing of government facilities. So I wanted to parallel real quick before we get to the aircraft, because something you just said about the Treasury Department. Well, in October 2021, the U.S. Treasury Secretary said that the United States is bankrupt, right? And then the media did what? Well, should Biden sign the debt ceiling, right? Well, a lot of these numbers are mirrors. And I don't use Q a lot because I'm just trying to get the average American to understand laws and orders first before you try to get in depth. But the thing is, it's like, one, Donald Trump signed an executive order called the Quantum Initiative or the Quantum Advisory Commission, and then it became an act, the Quantum Initiative Act, and then quantum.gov was launched September 2021, right before this October comment. So this is why people have to see what's going on and what they're trying to get you to see. They're bankrupting the rhinos, and they're bankrupting the cabal. They're making them spend their dirty money in ways, right, to bankrupt them too, because the money ain't worth anything. Our U.S. dollars not worth anything, right? That's why they wanted Donald Trump to come in and different things that he did with China, the tariffs he put on them, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. He proved how you can make money the right ways and also strengthen other countries. And that's why he says every country should think for themselves right now until we reach a plateau where you absolutely need trade of some sort. So I'm banking here back and forth, but September, that was why that was important to understand about the U.S. So these numbers that they parallel, the numbers they parallel. Oh, and then really quick though about the quantum. When people go to quantum.gov and they see Biden's name on there, continuity of government, ladies and gentlemen. The continuity of government is your big umbrella. That's your big umbrella. It's got to be that way. It's a continuity of government. They got to show all these actors and play this out. Now, September 2021 is when that was launched. October 2021. It was October 18th, 2021 when that article came out. You can go Google it. U.S. Treasury Secretary. Well, then the question was, will Biden sign the debt ceiling? Well, he signed the debt ceiling in December 2021. But the numbers, they use a lot of mirror numbers for a reason, right? Because of dirty money, right? 9/11. Everybody remembers 9/11. That's over a certain age. No one remembers September the 10th, 2001, when Donald Rumsfeld stood on national TV and said $2.3 trillion is missing from the Pentagon. So how come Biden signed a debt ceiling in December 2021 for $2.3 trillion? See how these numbers, they use all these numbers, they do mirrors to show people, right? So there's that. And then just the other day, China and Brazil struck a deal to ditch the U.S. dollar. Well, who did Donald Trump have at CPAC? The former president of Brazil, right? And how many aircraft do I have off the coast of Florida? Where are they from? Brazil. All right. And we had a lot of U.S. aircraft last week and the week before in where? Brazil. Okay. So, I tell people the other day on Twitter, I said, here's what shows you're still asleep. If you're using Biden in present tense, Trump in future tense, you're still asleep.
Exactly.
Because we don't have to have Trump in future tense because he's here now. He's still here by law and order. You don't need Biden except for a cog. It's a cog. It's a continuity of government. It's history repeating itself. Welcome to history. You're watching it repeat. It's not new history. History always repeats itself. So welcome to part 2 of World War II history. All right. So I try to do that before I get into the aircraft because people have to understand, why are they up there? What are they doing? What missions are they running? What kind of aircraft are they? How high are they flying? What are their missile capabilities?
Right.
So the colors on there, the colors, people wonder if that was branches. I'm like, no, the colors are just altitude. It's real simple. The colors represent what altitude they are. And so, from 2020 to 2021 to 22, but we had a lot of P-8 Poseidons flying around all over inland. A P-8 Poseidon is a submarine sniffer. Now, they do run recon and they do intelligence. There's a lot of other things they can do, but I had a comment the other day. It was kind of funny. I try not to look at negative comments, but I had one that said, "Oh, you're discrediting your platform by talking about P-8 Poseidons can find tunnels. I flew P-8s. That's not what they do." I'm like, look, you got to think outside the box every now and then. These tunnels that are underground, in order to clean them out, I already know they've already been reported that they've been flushing them out with water.
Right.
Well, if you put water in a tunnel, theoretically, if you put any kind of device in there, that may be a missile, it could be a buoy, it could be some kind of device. Theoretically, I mean, I'm just thinking outside the box. I mean, I don't know. I'm not with them. If I was, I wouldn't be able to tell you. But I'm just trying to think outside the box. Why do we have so many P-8 Poseidons flying inland? I mean, I have hundreds of them flying, not just one or two here and there. I mean, they're just in and out all day, every day, from Washington to Jacksonville.
And what if they upgraded the purpose of the plane a little bit? I mean, come on.
Well, it's a taxpayer. It's your taxpayer money. It's like I tell people, it's your taxpayer money.
Right.
If I'm wrong, we're in the same boat we've always been in. So I mean, but
right.
This is where the Q does come into play. The Q says, how many coincidences do you need before it's mathematically impossible?
Exactly.
Well, me and you are beyond that. But with what we know, it's beyond that.
Right.
But we're trying to get others to see. So the aircraft, when you read those federal continuity directives, it talks about emergency communications. It talks about emergency relocation groups, devolution emergency response groups.
Right.
So then you hear Trump talk about these places that we're going to have homeless go to, and we're going to get our homeless off the streets. We're going to rehabilitate. We're going to have retribution funds. We're going to be vindicated from history. We're going to be vindicated here. When you hear all these different kind of terms and all that, but when you go read those continuity directives, emergency relocation groups, devolution emergency response groups, and you see aircraft flying. A helicopter the other day flew from Michigan to El Paso, Texas at 500 feet altitude. Get out of here. I mean, that's a 14-hour flight in a helicopter. All right. There's a lot of Chinooks up right now. There's a lot more Chinooks up all over cities and different small cities, big cities. Just not normal aircraft that you're gonna, Dallas, Texas. Oh, look at there, Chinook, you're 1,000 feet high. Cool. No, it's not normal, right?
Oh, so yeah, there's a ton of these guys. I mean, like we live in South Tulsa, and I mean, there's a ton of these things at 3 a.m., 4 a.m.
Exactly.
That's not a normal time frame for that.
And a lot of them are flying blackout. They don't have lights on. They're flying just a red dot.
Right.
And what they're doing, they're mapping out. A lot of those are reconnaissance aircraft. They got capabilities of taking pictures. And when Trump says that we're going to decimate street crime by 85%, that means martial law. But that also means this. They wouldn't hit Tulsa one day and Dallas the next. No. This is why it's important. And this, like I said, it sounds like this is bring up negative day. But what, my original video when it went viral was talking about people who died in uniform. And we've got a soldier out there that, and I told the other day on my profile, I said, I'll stop short of hell from taking this person to the United States court martial. We have soldiers, we have military personnel who are talking about what the military does, and they're butchering it completely. It's a violation of the uniform. That's a violation, especially be on a TikTok video or any kind of video in a uniform
Right.
talking about what the military does, complete violation of DoD uniform regulations, their branch regulations, and also a lot of their bases have their own violations as well.
Right.
Not to mention your oath and national security. So you have people out there who are trying to like gain a platform or get popular or whatever that is, and you and I are here trying to show people, you better prepare what's coming. This is what's coming.
Right.
So the Space Force. Who created the Space Force? Donald John Trump, December the 20th, 2019. Guess what happened that day? Not only did he already change court martialing, not only did he issue all these other things with the law, war manual, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, but on December 20th, 2019, the Uniform Code of Military Justice was also reissued. I mean, what's the odds that military law had a lot of stuff added to it?
Was that 13923? Is that the one we were talking about beforehand? Was that the one with
no, that was no, that's 13823. That's and there's another one. We'll talk about it in a minute because I'm showing how Biden ain't even president. So we have a soldier out there, right? And I'm picking on this one person because I'm like, all right, you're in violation of multiple. But I'm trying to show people how this is how you can't listen to even people who claim to be in the military, right? Because of agendas and the other things. People trying to look cool, trying to be cool, and they're not reading. But right here, the fact that the Space Force, all right, Donald Trump, he founded the Space Force, all right. In August and December 2022, the Army and the Navy transfer all communications to the Space Force to be under one command. All right. It specifically shows that on spaceforce.mil and whatever the backslash is. I got that somewhere. But Army and Navy transfer all communications to the Space Force to be under one command. Well, everybody knows what the one voice system is. The EAS is a one voice. The president has one button he can push throughout all these federal continuity directives. It talks about emergency communications. Right. And then you have to, it'll have little acronyms and things. You have to go look those up too. And from those, it'll stem into other acts and codes and laws, et cetera. I mean, they're jam-packed full of information, right? So this soldier told somebody out there that, Biden supports the Space Force because he signed NDAA. That is a continuity of government. The NDAA, first off, is the whole defense budget for the whole military.
Yeah.
All right. Congress puts that together.
Right.
And then the president signs it. That is a continuity of government action all day long. That's what that would be. The other thing is, if Biden was commander in chief, if he was president, he'd have the same powers as every other president. Whether you hated him, loathed him, and just wanted to if you were a hateful person and wanted the man to die, I don't even want that for anybody, not even my enemies. God's in control of that. But if you hated someone that much, it wouldn't matter because he'd have the same powers as every other president if he was president. There's two words that have never been uttered or stuttered out of Joe Biden's mouth, whether you think he's real or not. He's a Space Force. All right. His press secretary is on recording. You can go listen. It says, well, if the Space Force would like to come over here to a press conference, we would welcome that opportunity to get to know them. The sixth branch of the military, that's not how the commander in chief talks to the sixth branch of the military. Sorry, ladies and gentlemen, but that's not how it works.
Right.
And this is where people, instead of, it sounds like I did focus on something negative, but this is how you show people that discernment to go, if you go read this big umbrella, the continuity directives, it outlines everything going on. And then when you take everything that we've said under it and put it together, then that's a reinforcement in a different way, even though it's not a reinforcement, it just shows what's going on under that. All right. So when you look at that, the Space Force, those two words, if he was president, he had the same powers as every other president. The military made Joe Biden spend half his 2020 campaign talking about shutting down Guantanamo Bay.
Right.
It'd be painful to go back and watch. But it'd be painful to go back and watch. But people, go to YouTube, watch the campaign over again, and he talks about shutting down Gitmo, shutting down Guantanamo Bay. And then also, he had a speech in February 2021, and he had another one in September 2021, and shut down Gitmo. Donald John Trump signed Executive Order 13823 that revoked Obama's order to shut it down. So
Yep.
13823 was an order that revoked an order and kept it open.
Right.
If Biden was president, if Congress didn't want to do it, Biden, with one stroke of the pen, could put it in an executive order, revoke Donald Trump's, and put
Sure
his
could.
order in to shut it down. So
Didn't
how come he hasn't
Schumer
done it?
didn't Schumer want to do it? I mean, didn't Schumer want to kill it as well? I mean,
Oh yeah,
yeah.
a bunch of and this is part of exposing the rats, right? Well, multiple people said that. Multiple of the side. It would not benefit Biden to keep Guantanamo Bay
Oh
open.
my God,
We
no.
already know about Hunter. Let's say Biden was clean. Let's just say that Joe Biden was clean, but Hunter Biden did everything.
Right.
You know, there's a lot of things like now, even though Hunter technically didn't work for the government, there's ways they could tie it in. They could tie it in that way. I mean, there's ways to do it. It don't benefit Biden.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
I tell people that it don't benefit him he's extended all 10 national emergencies by Donald Trump. He's extended the order that federalized the National Guard active duty. Okay, real or not, it don't make sense. Now, I know why he's done it, because he ain't real, and this is a continuity of government. And you and I know that they're making that evil. Donald Trump said this very clear. He said all evidence of all crimes and evidence will be displayed to the public in full accordance with the law. He said that a long time ago, 2019, 2018, somewhere there. He was in just a speech, right? So, but he's everything the man has said has come to fruition. Or layman's terms, fruition means, ladies and gentlemen, everything the man said has happened.
It means it comes up as fruit on the tree kind of thing with that.
Exactly. It's
so I want to respect your time with this too, but
I'm okay. I'm all right. You know.
Okay, good.
This is a great one.
Yeah. I want to keep going if you don't mind then too. I got a couple of things I want to throw out at you with this. Because I'd like you to kind of hit this one. I have believed for a long time that COVID was an umbrella cover for some of the NESARA stuff and some of the military stuff too, which is what you've sort of alluded to. And Trump said over and again that COVID would go away after Easter, and lo and behold, it just happened Monday. We're the 12th. Today's Wednesday, the 12th of April, and it went away. And I thought it was supposed to go away in May, and it suddenly showed up in the press briefings Monday. Doesn't that kind of give us an inkling from a military standpoint? This was heavy on my heart. This is really one of my biggest questions for you. It just kind of hit me. Doesn't that kind of release the military to go, green light, we're ready a little bit? Or would that be a kind of idea, or am I kind of missing it there?
No, well, first, you know, what people where people get insensitive with this subject is one that, well, people are dying. Well, you know, like, here's my thing. People die every day.
Right.
My grandpa told me one time, if you're worried about death, then you're not truly living. All right. So I preface that with what we're about to talk about.
Right.
And the fact that people die every day. Like,
yep.
You know, when it's your time,
2 million people
time.
die every day. And listen, I have a private practice. I got to tell you, so let me answer that one. I have a private practice. I'm an audiologist. Okay. My private practice averages 69 years old. I'm just going to tell you, I have to deal with that every day. And I see patients I have a patient that didn't pick up his hearing aids, and we found out that, his wife told me he died. And Charlie, I love Charlie. And it's an issue that you have to live with. Okay. It's a part. So we're not trying to belittle the COVID thing at all, but we're talking about the agenda. So get past the conversation of the person, but to the agenda issue here. So yeah, go ahead.
So cool. You know, I mean, and what people will do too is they'll flip and say, well, Bill Gates had this way back here in 2012, yada, yada. Exactly. But that's the PSYOP. This is the counter PSYOP. The line was drawn in the sand in 2016. That's where the military jumped in. That's why you have to understand history. My grandfather, Army veteran, my great uncles, Marines, Navy, Army, etc. I had a great uncle. It's a Purple Heart at Normandy. All right. These men talked about this comment I'm about to make. This is what's prevalent to this. When Donald Trump told Jeb Bush on the 2016 campaign, Jeb said, and this is the time, remember, they had all these Republicans on stage running for president. They did this on purpose too. They did that on purpose. That was an op-ed. All these Republicans. Jeb Bush, though, said, who's going to vote for you? Who's going to back you? Who's going to support you? And Trump looked at the moderator and said, well, that's a loaded question, Jeb. If the moderator give me time to answer that, I'll answer that for you. Because he said, that's more than one question, right? So, one, he said, the American people are going to vote for me because they're tired of BS politicians like you. Every single one of you on this stage has been in office no less than 4 years. You tell the American people what they want to hear, but you never back it up. I'm a businessman, not a politician. That's who, and he said, the American people are going to vote for me. 2 and 3, who's going to back me? Who's going to support me? I have over 200 generals backing me right now. Well, that's what that comment was I said earlier. Well, when people hear 200 generals, average people, they hear individuals. When a military person hears generals, I hear the general and their divisions all the way down.
Right?
Yes, sergeants, to the yes sergeants, taking the orders.
Did he say that? He said that when he was in the primaries? Is that what he said? That? Wow,
that's correct.
I didn't know that. Oh, you're
that's
blowing
what
my mind.
shows this was a plan from the start.
Right. I mean, I heard about this in 2014. I mean, my contact had talked to me in 2014 when I barely knew who Trump was, and he was talking to me. He's going to be president because the generals and the White Hats were talking about bringing him in. I was like, "What are you talking about?"
There were 200 generals in history, not collectively all in one room like people think, but there were 200 generals in history that said, never again will we let happen in this country what happened under JFK. If we get a chance to take it over, we're going to throw a coup d'etat and take it over.
Right.
Well, what people got to understand is that is part the Declaration of Independence. Once again, gives me and you the right, and it says our right and our duty to overthrow such government that goes against its foundation.
Thomas Jefferson wrote it that way, guys. This is what
our founders laid precedent. Our founders laid, and then when the Bill of Rights came out, they backed that up with the Bill of Rights because they knew the only way that you could keep a government from coming on you was with arms. Right. Take up arms, prepare and plan, and if you have to use them, the Declaration gives. And I think people think because we got into this place of technology and lush and cush lives that they forget about that these things happen, right? No, that wasn't that long ago. I mean, you think about history. You look at China, how long the world's been around that we know of based off of documents. American history is not that old. It just isn't. So I like to preface that because people they tend to just want to zone in on that one little sliver of this topic, but we're trying to show you the umbrella picture. Because if you go, once again, it sounds like we're, same broken record. If you go look in those continuity directives, I mean, February 2018 one so the Federal Continuity Directive 1 and 2 are your umbrellas. These are when they were issued, operational. Then they stem off showing you different segments that are coming. One was February 2018. The other was January 2021. That one alone, January 2021 alone is actually titled the reconstitution of the executive branch. I mean, so look what happened. Look at all the distractions they put out in front of everybody in January 2021 alone.
Right.
Like they had so many people, look here, not there. But that actual directive is actually titled Reconstitution of the Executive Branch. And then if you go to Federal Continuity Directive 1 and look at the two titles, Reconstitution and Devolution. So when people have heard the term devolution, think, is this real? Is it real? Yes, it's real.
It's really
right there. It was issued January 17, 2017, 3 days before Trump took office. The second one is the implementation phase of 1. All right. And it's 4.5 months after. So it shows you that it was continuity. It's continuous, that it's on their minds. It's what they're doing. It's an operation. Because if they issued this one 3 days before, and then this one 4.5 months after Trump took office, to act like Trump didn't know this was going on, that's out of nut. That wouldn't even make sense.
Nuts, dude. Yeah.
And so I preface that with the COVID because if you go looking at February 2018 one alone, it is, I mean, like I said, it shows diagrams of the three branches of government and what they each would do and what they're expected to do during that. And then it shows you this other portion that shows pandemic. Oh, and it's, I mean, it's loaded with what, you know, what it, it's like word for word going, holy crap, this was 2018, 2 years before. Like, so you're like, then you see chemical explosions, you see all these catastrophic events, and you're sitting there thinking train derailment, the fires and the explosions. And you're like, this is all, they set this up once again, like we said
Right
earlier. So they
now.
set all this up to one, if you're following and tracking, then you know what's coming. If you're still lost, then it's a look here, not there kind
Right.
of deal. Like, oh, while you're looking over here, they're working over here,
Right.
right? And it makes it more efficient, you know. And you're in business, you know. I have my MBA and different things like that. The one thing you talk about the most in business school is efficiency, right? It's efficiency. What can we do that's more effective but more efficiency, right? Because it ain't always about being effective. If you can't work efficiently, you might not be effective, right? So we talk about that the most. So it's a brilliant plan. It's so brilliant, it's almost hard to comprehend because of all this stuff going together. But COVID, like, this is where I said I wanted to preface for being, you know, insensitive, but you know, being a military guy, like we get so used to death that it's not even, it can almost be bad in another way because you hear about it so much and it's just, you get so used to it, you get prone to it that sometimes it don't affect you here, right? Or even here, you just get used to it. But the flip side of that is like, well, where some people might take insensitive, I say, well, get to know me first and understand where we're coming from.
Right.
But did we eradicate the flu? Where did the flu go? Like, how come we never heard of the flu in 2020? I mean, it just went, oh, just dropped off the planet. I mean, so it's not hard to see what they did. Like, if you know about these continuity directives, you know about these orders, you know when the military was federalized, and if you can see where they're going with it, as we're showing you, we're getting to military tribunals. That will be the exposure, and then the military occupancy. It'll be the military running the elections until they can have the feeling and knowing that the people are ready to handle what it is. All right. So if you can see that, right, where did the flu go? They took those numbers and they said, look, people, that the health, this to get people's attention is health, right? Oh, they put a new name in there and they got everybody. That's the way I see it, because these, look, they say you either believe in these or you don't. If you don't, then okay, then that's a difference of opinion, but have more backing than someone does grasping for straws.
Right.
Right. And so did we eradicate the flu? Well, if you go back in 2019, Donald Trump had 2 executive orders for influenza vaccines. And this is very key. He put inside them the CDC. All right. Inside them, it reads about CDC stats, da 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 da. Fast forward, 2020, he had another influenza vaccine executive order. Guess who was not listed in there? The CDC. Right. So there goes smoking the rats again. There's exposure of the rats again. Right. The FDA. It wasn't Donald Trump. Donald Trump's vaccine that he talked about was perfect. It was and where did he go?
Anywhere.
Where did he go?
Nothing what you think it is, by the way. So yeah, it's a different conversation.
Where did he go? Where did he go to get his vaccine? Military installation.
Right.
There's your answer right there. Military, we have our own research and development, even in the military. We have our own medical facilities. We have our own everything. So he showed an optic right there. So people saying, why does he support the jab? Why does he support the jab? Why does he support the vaccine? Look, you got to know what you're talking about. It was the FDA who went against Donald Trump. It was the CDC who went against Donald Trump.
Correct.
And then who's married to who? Who's Fauci? What was Fauci's wife? Right? And how they all tie in? It was the NIH, right? And she does research. She was one of the main researchers for I think it was the CDC or one of those, right? They all tie in, right? So if you go back to 2012, just 2012 or 11, I think it was. I have to go back and look at the year, but Fauci's on live MSNBC or one of those shows, and he's saying, well, if they really had the flu, the guy asked him a question. He said, well, if they really had the flu, no, if they really had the flu, then they don't need a vaccine. I mean, this was Right.
it's
So
basic virology, guys. It's just basic
it is.
virology. Yeah.
And so, was it what people can't seem to grasp is the concept of saving $1 billion, and if you lost $1 million,
Right.
right? But what they're not wanting to look at is the fact that the flu numbers are equivalent; they're the same numbers.
Right.
And if you go look at the flu numbers the year before, and the year before, and the year
Exact
before,
number.
the same numbers.
Yep.
So people were still dying at the same rate, but using a different term
Yep.
actually
Yep.
achieve what they wanted people to do, sit at home, where our military could work more efficiently. Because look at the timeline. What did 2018 articles say? The Army had to train during 2018. In 2019, when DARPA was
Mm.
requesting. So by 2020, they'd have been ready to roll when it came to the training, because that's not our normal training, right? That's not what we have normally been fighting for the last 60 years of these stupid wars, as Donald Trump calls them, the stupid warmongers, right? So when you look at training, takes a little while. You don't just become an
I mean, it's
expert
kind of like
overnight. And in
World War
order,
One to World War II. I mean, it was a totally different type of warfare in a way.
total different.
Yeah.
Subterranean warfare. And so, and also, in order to limit the most amount of injuries and deaths, even in that, because we have deaths all the time. They don't report that to people. If they did, they're already having problems getting people to join now. The Army numbers are
Right.
down, all numbers are down. If they reported what happens sometimes in training alone, people would do it. So, that's the stuff that's I have to be careful talking about too, because I don't want I don't want the Army coming back at me saying whatever in a different way. But
Right.
it's the same. They don't put out certain numbers because no one would ever. It's a volunteer service. No one would volunteer if they knew some of the real stuff, right? So you going in these tunnels, a new form of warfare for young soldiers. You want to limit the injuries and the deaths that happen just in that alone. So they wouldn't just train for a month or two and then hop right in.
Right.
So the timeline adds up for that. And then the executive orders, the laws, everything just like it's so much like a tight glove, and it fits like a glove, and it coincides, and it makes perfect
So do you
sense
think
because
that
it's all in orders.
do you think that the end of it, the ending, because we've always kind of wondered about it. Like, I mean, I always kind of thought that the ending was going to be the ending of COVID would happen at the end of like the EAS, the EBS kind of thing. But I didn't think that I didn't think that the end would happen before an EBS. But I guess we're there. So it's like, does that
Well, I
kind
mean
of activate the
that still can that still can happen. I mean, the EAS.
Oh, it's going to happen. Those are, I
Yeah,
believe, those have to
yeah.
happen because you have to just have to have the big D class point. But is that a big signaler? Maybe the COVID thing, is that a big signaler
I mean,
to everyone? It's time.
if I had to guess, I mean, I think there might be some big retaliation point where it's like Biden and them do something that's just absolutely, catastrophic and stupid.
Okay.
For instance, like China and Taiwan, and then, and maybe Iran or something, because the nuclear topic keeps being pulled up a lot.
Right.
Nuclear. So I think it may be something that may be like where, a true, absolute, a by definition abuse of power.
Right.
Uh, so,
I mean,
from
I
that
like to
angle.
call it a fake false flag. This is a Scott term, so don't. I mean, you're not
Oh
going to
yeah.
like it, but fake false flag is. I mean, false flag is the 9/11 things where thousands and thousands of people die or whatever. Fake false flag is going, you know what? We're limiting this. We're going to stop it because we're doing something very different than what you think it was. And
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Well, and that's the thing, is like, that's what I've been trying to help people with, is look, just because I've already been around Trump twice, don't mean that they're giving me bugs in my ear, nothing like that. They're not. I'm showing people bylaws and orders. Now, he's not going to re-truth anything I say because it's part of the plan, right? They know I'm on top of the target. They wouldn't have intercepted me. I signed this major publicity deal. Uh, they wouldn't have. This wouldn't have just happened either. However, because I was a certain rank in the military, I wasn't a general, and I don't have or I don't have millions follow me, um, I can say what I'm saying because it's helping people in other ways. But would they have come out and said that? No, because it shows the plan, right? And
Right.
they're sticking to their word and their honesty and their integrity. So Trump's not going to retruth anything of mine or anything of that nature. Now, who's getting a picture with me? He knows what I'm saying. I've said it around him, for other people sitting around him. And he had a guy on speakerphone one day, and the guy goes, "That guy knows what he's talking about." And it didn't say it like, he didn't say it like it was the first time he'd heard me. He said it like, "That guy, he knows what he's talking about." Well, like he's heard it before.
Right.
So, there's validation there. And then what he'll do is, like the next speech, a day after he and I were together, he said something that my manager had said. And then he said he used the state, one of the states I live in, right? And it's like, of all 50 states, why did he use that as an analogy? And then a word like emblematic. I mean, my manager, she's graceful and she's elegant, and I give a shout out to her, Natalie, and of course I have Kathy and a few others out there. But Natalie, we're standing there, and she goes, "I'd like to compliment Melania. She's emblematic of grace." And I'm sitting there like, "Where'd you get that word?" Like that's stretching for an old Southern boy, right? Well, the day, like I said, at Club 45, which they call Club 47 now, 2 hours, 12 minutes in, he says the word emblematic. He's never said it anywhere else in any speeches.
Wow.
So, he
He's listening.
gives you he gives you vindication in other ways, and he knows who's fighting. He's first off, he has a pulse on the nation. He knows the people that are fighting for him. He likes loyalty in the right ways, but he's got a pulse on it. He knows what people are saying out there, and he has people that are in his inner circle, like my friend Siggy Flicker, who helped us out a lot too. But she's like our liaison to him, really, and she's the one always like, "Hey, this guy, this guy." So she's the one doing that, and he sees it. He knows because they're loyal to him, and then they see the people that's loyal to him through them, right? So, but it's all there, but it's getting people to understand that. Look, how does it benefit you? As I think where we're at, it's like, how does this benefit you? And it's like, look, I mean, you're only as free as your surroundings allow you to be,
Right.
right? And that's been the military. But then, Marbury versus Madison, 1803, specifically said, they went to court over this. And it says, any statute that bears the appearance of a law that doesn't support the Constitution is repugnant. It's null and void. So
Absolutely.
you and I both, even in my short time and your time on earth, there's a law for a law for a law, a tax for a tax for a tax. That they don't, a bill for a bill for a bill. Some of them don't, we have too much in a different way. And it was never meant to be that way. And that's what we got to get back to, is the simplicities of government, the simplicities of what our founders established, and not pin each other up over race, religion, politics, and also patriotism. There's a difference in politics and government. And people also have the wrong look at the government in a different way too, as long as they're not tyrannical towards us. As long as we keep that checks and balances, we got to have a foundation of how we operate if we want to have that.
I mean, my big thing as we're kind of wrapping this up here is this, guys. I use this verse over and over again. Hebrews 11:1. Faith is the substance of things hoped for and the promise of things unseen. Faith is that substance of the things hoped for. So it's a promise of something hoped for, and the promise of things unseen. It is the thing that you should be a fence line that you should put around your hope. It's why I get up every morning at 4 or 5 in the morning. Now, because I was up watching hockey last night, I was up at 5. So that was a little bit later than normal. But so I get up and I'm in prayer, and I'm putting a fence line of hope, or excuse me, of faith around my hope. What was Derek doing right today here? As you're listening to this hour and a half, I really appreciate you guys paying attention for this whole hour and a half. And you need to go search out his rattle trap. Isn't that right? I mean, can you say that again? You're
Yeah. So yeah, on the when you
uh,
get to Telegram, it's t.me/rattlestrap 1776. So all one word, no spaces, underscores, periods. Because
rattle trap 1776. So
some
it's
people can fake the username, so you have to
yeah,
specify.
and
Yeah.
look for right this second. This is April. It's 133,000. So you'll kind of get an idea. That's kind of the way I look at those kind of things too. And you'll see mine
Right.
down below. But the point is that your faith is sitting around your hope. If you're feeling no hope, it's your horse that's running around there and doesn't have a fence line. Okay, that's the best way to put it. So you need to put your horse underneath in that fence line here. Okay, and that's really what's happening to you. And that's what we're trying to do here with these executive orders. What Derek's showing you is these cool things with these executive orders that have been put in place, and they've been thinking them through. And the military's been doing that for you for quite a while. So do you have any other kind of thoughts, that just last thoughts as we kind of finish this up here?
Well, just a cherry on top. We got to do it just because this has been one of the greatest shows outlining this. Because I love it when you bring up the NESARA too, for people to understand that the quantum system. Look at state of Texas. The state of Texas 3 days ago filed for digital currency. And I just posted today. I said, well, Yahoo's running behind because they said something about DeSantis saying that the federal government has. I'm like, state of Texas bill says effective September the 1st, 2023. Like, that's not far off. All right. Gold digital currency, state of Texas. The other thing, Donald Trump, December the 7th, 2020. All right. When he filed, he showed people he did everything by law and order. It doesn't matter. 2020 people say, I got all the text messages. Oh, your boy lost 59 of 60 circuit courts. I said, I reckon so, when they're all judges appointed by Obama, Clinton, and
Yep.
Bush. I reckon so. So that's also part of the clean out. But December the 7th, 2020, Donald Trump filed through the United States Supreme Court via the state of Texas versus state of Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and Georgia.
Right.
All right. So there's another op-ed. But the thing that I think is a cherry on the top outside of that is the fact that, look, if you believe in the military, whether it be a general, all the generals, then you got, maybe your cousin, your dad, or your mom, whoever may have served. I'd say this. All right. Here's the deal. I get to brag a little being an Army veteran. Army is the United States Army who performs all presidential inaugurations. All right. It's the United States Army. They're called the Official Presidential Salute Battery, also known as the Old Guard. Army, United States Army. They use 4 cannons. All right. On January 20th, 2021, at Joint Base Andrews, when everybody thought Donald Trump was riding off to the sunset. All right. There are both Air Force Ones present. There's articles out there. You can go to mainstream articles that show both Air Force Ones. The Air Force, not Trump Force One, the Air Force did not give Biden the traditional ride into D.C. on Air Force One. That shows you the Air Force does not recognize Biden with that gesture alone, because if he was president, he'd be the same powers every the president. The Air Force gave Obama a ride in. I didn't vote for him. They gave him a ride in.
Everyone did. Right. Every single president before that.
Whether you like him or not, you got to ride by the Air Force. Okay. Biden did not. There are 4 cannons there. This is how key the military is. When Donald Trump walked off the Marine One on red carpet rollout, I honor the official presidential salute battery. The official presidential salute battery, the Old Guard 3rd Infantry Division, was with Donald John Trump.
Right.
On the 4th ruffle, the 4th one, held to the chief start, simultaneous 21-gun salute with 4 cannons. That is an official military regulation and constitutionally regulated presidential inauguration service. Donald Trump had it. So it's the other side of town. Joe Biden raised his right hand 11:47 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, which is a violation of the 20th Amendment of the Constitution.
Correct.
You would not have 2 presidents in at one time because why? The nuclear codes. And if, even though 13 minutes don't sound like a long time, if it came down to something crazy like that, that's how particular everything has been written in our history. You wouldn't have that. Okay. The other thing, there's multiple soldiers all out of regulations. They did this on purpose, showing you Trump soldiers versus the actors, what they call Trump is on it again. I don't like calling him Trump because I feel like I'm disrespectful, but Commander in Chief Trump, he's been saying it again at every speech: central casting, central casting, central casting. So we are getting to some form of revelation in the near, no matter how it looks. Central casting. He said it 23 times from 2017 to 2018. If I were going to have you in a movie talking to a general, it'd be you. You look like central casting. Central casting. If you go Google central casting right now, the first thing that pops up, the leading background actor agency in the United States of America. And it's not roles like, hey, you want to be an Instagram model, come over here and bring your bikini, no. You can do that at home. It's roles like, hey, there's going to be a group of people and they're going to be in this dark alley and it's like stuff that like this is that look, right? So you have that. All these uniforms out of whack. Anybody's ever been in the military knows you'll be in unison. Whatever branch you're in, you'll be in unison. If everybody's wearing a coat, you're wearing a coat. If they say you can downgrade, if you're freezing, but all your buddies want to downgrade, you're downgrading with them. You're not going to have a belt on and one of them don't have it. You're in unison. All right. Cover on. Anytime you walk outside, cover on. Anytime you walk inside a building, cover off. Cover on, cover off. You're not going to be standing outside without a cover. You're not going to be standing outside with one soldier without a cover and one soldier. It don't work like that, ladies and gentlemen. That's not how the military is based on discipline, routine, and structure. All right. There are multiple soldiers. The grave and unknown soldier, very, very sacred. Now, this is a soldier that we know. I knew him. I served with him. The grave of the unknown soldier is showing all the lives that never came home, that no remains. All right. The unknown soldier, very sacred. There's a soldier standing right beside the wreath that don't even have a cover on, right in front of the whole world. And all the others have a cover on. All right. So that's not a part of military, ladies and gentlemen. That alone. But on January 20th, 2021, it's the Army. You got to be careful. You can see salutes by when a president dies. You can see salutes by the Marines, the Air Force, etc. But the official funeral service of the military, it's under usstate.gov, Army. It's the United States Army who lays the presidents in the ground, who does all the ceremonial process around that. It's all on usstate.gov. I forget the backslash, but it's Army something, something. You can Google that. On January 20th, 2021, Joseph Robinette Biden Jr. received a full-grade military funeral service. It's the United States Army, and every presidential funeral uses 3 cannons. If you go look on C-SPAN and all the others, Joe Biden had 3 cannons.
Right. But how come?
And you don't need anymore.
But my fascinating point that I was watching, I watched it live and I saw the 3 cannons, right? And the first cannon shoots, the second cannon shoots, the third cannon doesn't even shoot. And I'm sitting there watching going, what's going on?
So you have so like with the 4 cannons, you have 3 for fire and 1 for misfire. The 3 would be 2 for fire and 1 for misfire. And you can look under Trump's inauguration in 2017, there was a misfire, and the other one fired just that quick. They don't skip a beat.
Okay.
Which shows.
But only the 2 cannons fired in those ones, and the third one just sat there. So you just had the first 2 shooting off, and it was an odd response. And of course, in the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier, you normally have, your president and vice president, they're wandering around and doing their little wander point. And you always see the guys and you watch them go through, but no one's there.
Well, every other president pushes the wreath back.
Right.
The soldier walks it back. Right. And there's a process. And no
one's there.
It's right in front of everybody. It really is. And that's the cherry on top. Because I'm like, you think the Army got that? You get 4 and 8 years to get that wrong. You think all of a sudden after all these years, they just didn't care, flubbed up, whatever you want to call it.
It was too funny. I mean, I always kind of I think the last part, I'll just tell you this. I mean, I think the greatest part is when he walks up and he tries to get in the door, and he can't even get in the front door, and he's kind of like knocking at the door and he doesn't know what to do, and he pulls out the door and he's like, I don't know what to do, and then they finally unlock the door, and then he gets in there and they kind of all walk in, and they shut the door and they leave. and you're going, what is this? I mean, what
Oh,
jokers?
they do that. They do that multiple times. It shows him opening his own door everywhere. It
I
shows
mean,
him at the airport with no Secret Service around him.
right. I mean,
Um, he he and Harris get off the aircraft together in Atlanta or Houston or Atlanta. I can't remember where they were. You wouldn't have your president on the same aircraft.
ever,
That's stupid.
ever.
There's just they've shown the people so much, and at what point did the people go, wow, he's falling upstairs, not downstairs. He's had bird crapping on him. He's on a bicycle standing still and he falls over. I mean, what else do you need? Another thing, he shuffles to the podium like he's about to blow 8 Taco Bell Supremes out his butt like a Civil War cannon. And then the same day, he's riding a bicycle. Like, which one is it? I just don't get that. Like, I don't know. Is it
I
like,
mean, yeah.
is he bipolar? I mean, I don't know.
I mean, yeah,
on.
that's the stuff. And you guys, you gotta just let it out. You got to be calm about this. I swear to you, there is a sense of humor with this in this whole thing, and you just got to be calm. And I promise you, I promise you, the people. I will tell you this, guys, as we finish up here. I got to tell you, I know it. I can see it in your eyes, but most of the truthers I know, although we're weary, we are tired. We want it to be over. All of us want it to be over. We are excited, right?
Oh yeah, for sure.
We're,
Yeah, I
we're
mean, that's what I tell people. Look, we're living, we're breathing. You're gonna live every day. You might as well enjoy it, and you might as well enjoy what's going on. Like, I mean, it shouldn't stop you from living though. Like, if you get frustrated, turn off the TV, turn off the internet, turn off, lay your phone down, whatever. Go for a walk, go for a hike, go fishing, go hunting, whatever it is you love to do. Go do that, skydiving, whatever it is that gives you that peace. Like, go do that. Like,
right.
don't get frustrated over it, because you when the good Lord's finished with you, he'll be finished with you. But if you're 40 and he's going to give you to 90, you're going to live through this no matter what. So
Yeah, it's
enjoy it.
it's coming
Part
to
of
an
history.
end, guys. It's coming to an end, and all these things are starting. We're starting to see it happen. And I promise you, I'm getting messages left and right for this stuff. It's coming to an end, and I just thank you so much. It was so much fun to deal with
Oh
this.
yeah,
And so, I mean, if you
awesome,
want to come on back, I just love to have you
absolutely.
come back. And and we just pray a blessing on Derek right now. We just pray a hedge of protection over him. We just thank you, Lord Jesus. I mean, my wife is sitting over here. We're just praying a hedge of protection over him. And we just thank you, Lord Jesus, that you bring that hedge of protection over him and over all of that he does. And we just bring that prosperity as well, so he can be able to bring more of the message to the people. We just thank you for this all in Jesus' name we pray. Amen. So thank you,
Amen.
guys. I
Yeah,
appreciate it. If you like and subscribe and go over to his channel, go ahead and get on his channel and talk to him. But you know what? Just tell him you appreciate him. Don't be like too picky. Okay. I promise it'll be okay. All right. Thanks so much.